Welcome to REELaTVity. On this channel, I'll be doing movie reviews and recommendations from a real world perspective, done in an immersive way that you hopefully haven't seen before. I also plan on eventually expanding into TV shows and other outlets once the channel begins to grow and I'm able to dedicate myself to it full time. This is the theater room where we'll be doing the reviews. The movie we're going to be reviewing today is The Inevitable Defeat of Mr. and Pete. So sit back, relax, and let's get into it. The Inevitable Defeat of Mr. and Pete is a gut-wrenching urban survival drama starring Skyland Brooks, Ethan Dizon, and Jennifer Hudson. Jordan Sparks plays a complimentary role, but is vital to the storyline as an element of hope. Released in 2013, this gritty film has it all: struggle, redemption, moral and ethical challenges, and so much more. So let's dive in. Mr., played by Brooks, is a strong, resourceful adolescent who, like most in his situation, have grown up too fast. Raised in the projects, poor, and with a heroin-addicted prostitute for a mother, Mr. knows nothing but hard times, ridicule, and survival. Having to be the man of the house at a young age has stripped him of his childhood, along with having to face the prospect of home invasions, drug dealers, and being shipped off to a group home, all before he even gets off his block. With all this on his plate, along with not knowing where his next meal is coming from, it's no surprise his focus in school is lacking. But no one is going to feel sorry for him or give him anything, as he realizes early in an opening scene with his teacher. The struggle is heartbreaking, but all too common. It's evident with his relationship with Pete. Pete, played by Dizon, is a young Asian boy living in these same projects with Mr. Although their exact ages aren't given, Pete looks to be around 9 or 10 years old. But safe to say, he and Mr. can relate. Pete's mother is also a junkie, who we later find out is physically abusive to young Pete. That's when she's even around. With Pete and Mr.'s mothers both tricking for the same neighborhood drug dealer, it was inevitable that they end up around each other one way or another. But sometimes going through the same struggles with someone and also only having each other to depend on can strengthen your bond. Although I don't think either of them thought they would have become as close as they did. Once they're forced to fend for themselves, things get real fast. And Mr. has to grow up even faster as he's now responsible for himself and Pete. And they come up against multiple obstacles that will break most adults. From trying to survive 100-degree days with no power, to trying to quell their rumbling stomachs. Plus trying to dodge a housing police force that sole purpose seems to be snatching these abandoned kids and putting them into a dreaded group home known as Riverview. But it doesn't end there. They also have to try to find a way to protect themselves from all these burglaries in their building, now that many apartments have been vacated due to another dealer's arrest. Not to mention the toll this lack of food, stress, and rough living conditions is taking on their health, especially young Pete. But with no help in sight, they even turn to breaking into apartments just to find food or anything that can help them survive. The same thing they're trying to protect themselves against. But after a close call with a loaded firearm found in one of these home invasions, Mr.'s newfound guardian senses kick in, and he realizes this isn't safe, especially for Pete. Eventually, Mr.'s old neighbor, Alice, played by Sparks, stumbles across the boys riding by her old neighborhood. But by this time, they have already been fending for themselves for quite some time. Alice had moved out of Mister's building a while back into a fancy uptown apartment supplied by a man who was having an affair on his wife. Taking advantage of her ticket out of the projects, she rarely saw Mr. or Pete. After running into Mr. and seeing the boy's situation, she decided to help out the best that she could. But it was short-lived. Just like everyone else, she would eventually fail them and leave them once again to fend for themselves. Basically, brothers at this point, all they could do was continue to fight for each other. They had no one else. And eventually what they were running from caught up to them both in a touching scene in back of a squad car. Mr. was eventually overcome by his grief, stating, "I can't do this alone." But such is life in these environments, and they were eventually reunited one last time, even if only for a brief stint before being separated again. This is a special film. For some reason, it seems to have flown under the radar. At least with me, it did. Everything is in here. Struggle with addiction and parenting within that struggle. Redemption and overcoming those demons. The will to survive while trying to keep your core values of right and wrong. And in Alice's case, even without the threat of survival. The bond grown and strengthened out of going through and coming through hard times together. And so much more. Great acting throughout and a believable and touching storyline that has you feeling all the hopes and disappointments as if you were in the struggle right along with them. My movie ratings and best performance award will be showing next, so continue watching until the end. Subscribe and like if you haven't already. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next review.